Hello bookworms! This is the start of a new reading vlog. So I put up a little poll on Instagram to see what I'll be reading, and the two options are A House with Good Bones or Divine Rivals, and I have a feeling that Divine Rivals is gonna win, but I'm not 100% sure, so I'm gonna pull up the poll right now. Also, side note, I mentioned this in another video, but I got this new phone case and I am just like in love with it. It is amazing. I'll put it up. Maybe I'll put like a better graphic on the screen. I don't know if you can see that perfect, but it looks like Divine Rivals is winning with 78% and A House with Good Bones is at 22%. So Divine Rivals it is. I had a feeling that was gonna win, but my two focuses are obviously Divine Rivals because it was the winner, and Fourth Wing, which I'm so excited to finally be reading. I'm actually 2 chapters into this one already. So Divine Rivals is gonna be my ebook read, which will probably be like the book that I'm reading while I'm commuting because I have to go to work this week. And Fourth Wing will be my physical book that I'll be reading when I'm at home. I actually had Fourth Wing on ebook, like from the library. And then because I ended up reading Secret History, which you guys saw in my last vlog, my loan like lapsed. I had like 1 day left in it and I hit, you know, place hold again. And it was like, you are 470th in line and you have, I think it's a 20 weeks until I could take it out again. So I was like, I'm not gonna wait that long. So physical read it is for that one. But that's really all that I have going on right now. I'm going to, it's a Sunday, which is pretty nice. I am going to do some reading before I have to start thinking about work and how many emails I'm gonna have after a week-long vacation. Tomorrow's probably gonna be like a bit of a nightmare, but for now, I'm just going to be cozy in my little Borg cardigan and just enjoy this last day. So it is just about a full week later and I finished reading Divine Rivals and I really loved it. So I'm going to talk to you guys about it now, just to give you a heads up, and I've mentioned it before. It's really hard for me to vlog during the work week. It's just kind of boring. I'm basically just getting up, going to work, coming home, eating dinner, going to sleep, and then going back to work. So I find it a lot easier to do this on the weekend. So I just wanted to talk about this one. It was amazing. So you know when you start reading a book and you can pretty immediately tell that it's going to be a new favorite, because that's how I felt about Divine Rivals within the first 2 chapters, the prologue and chapter 1. I was like, yes, this is a book for me. This story is dual perspective and we are following 2 journalists who are vying for the same position at their newspaper, the Gazette. Their names are Iris and Roman and they are both excellent writers, but Iris has been having some issues at home after her brother Forrest enlisted to fight in the war after hearing the Song of Enva call to him. She's been supporting herself and her mother, who has succumbed to an alcohol addiction, and that has caused her to be late for work a couple of times. So despite her extreme talent, she is not in as good of a position as Roman because of things like tardiness. Meanwhile, Roman comes from a very wealthy, well-to-do family and his life is seemingly perfect. However, his father is very much in control of everything going on with him and he really has no say in the matter. So despite him always having a very positive public-facing appearance, he is not very happy on the inside. Iris and Roman live in a city called Oath, and it's a place that has not yet been hit by this mythical war that has started between 2 gods named Enva and Dacre. And the newspaper that they work at doesn't believe that the war is really going to come near them. They're kind of ignoring the news. They've been instructed not to write anything about the war, but Iris, having a brother who's fighting, is definitely very interested in those happenings. Enva and Dacre actually kind of give me like a Hades and Persephone vibe, so I was really into their stories. So in addition to everything that I just mentioned, the real heart of the story is the enemies to lovers romance between Iris and Roman. It is really cute, and it's happening via like an old-timey you've got mail kind of situation. Iris has basically been writing letters to herself and her missing brother just to get her feelings out, try to kind of process things and express them on paper. And once she finishes typing them up, she folds them, puts them in her closet, and little does she know, but they've been getting delivered to Roman through his closet. Roman has been ignoring the letters until one night when he finally decides to respond. He basically knows that it's Iris from day one, but in this place where both of them are anonymous and they are building this divine relationship where the two of them are at their most vulnerable, and it's all under the guise of anonymity. So it's just such a special and like magical relationship to watch form. There's also just something so romantic about a relationship that is taking place through typewritten letters happening over candlelight. Then meanwhile, at their day job, the pair are still arguing incessantly, and Iris is just determined to best Roman in every possible sense. Their banter is so much fun, and I also really love how Iris will do things just to bother Roman. She knows that he doesn't like when people touch his desk, so she makes it a point to go and rearrange things every once in a while just to frustrate him. And it's also so cute that Roman is the one who falls first. Also, side note, I very much enjoy Roman's Nan. So this synopsis basically just scratches the surface of everything that's happening in this story. One thing that I love about it is that this book tries to do so much and it somehow actually succeeds. I could very easily see a less talented writer trying to accomplish everything that Rebecca Ross does in this story and like epically failing, but she somehow manages to pull it off. So much so that I'm really excited to go and check out some more of her work. I think the next thing I want to pick up from her is the elements of cadence duology. I really love the vibe of this book, and that is something that is so interesting to me because it's one of those books that's kind of like the exception to the rule. Typically, I don't really like reading historical fiction, and this very much has a historical vibe. It feels like it takes place in a World War II era, in a world pretty similar to our own, but with some magical notes. And I also really don't like movies or books about war, but Divine Rivals is about both, and it somehow has managed to be one of my favorite books that I've read so far this year. So the magic system is subtle and inventive. I really love the idea of flowers just sprouting up out of teacups or old shoes. I love this seemingly enchanted closet, and I also love the idea of a store rearranging its shelves once you walk in to sort what you can afford toward the front. It adds a bit of whimsy to an otherwise familiar world in the most delightful way possible. It also almost feels like magic in itself to have these newspapers be such an important part of these people's lives, because that is the sole source of information. It's not like modern day where we have the internet and every single story is just accessible at our fingertips. Then there's also the mythology of Dacre and Enva. I absolutely love the pieces where we get to hear their tale, and reading their stories very much reminded me of sitting down and reading something out of Greek mythology. The way that their lives entangle and how their feud is affecting the current human population is just fascinating and so powerful, and also just so cool that these humans are being touched so directly by divinity. I really enjoyed the prose, and there were so many quotes that I highlighted in this book, specifically quotes that have to do with loss. And speaking of, I'm not spoiling anything, and if you can believe it, like what I've said so far is not even a spoiler. There's so much more to the story, but there were parts of this book that hit me so hard that I was definitely brought to tears. So again, like with all that said, that's not even the meat of the story, and there is just so much more to experience and discover if you decide to pick up this book on your own. I personally have such a fierce love for Iris and Roman, and I am so glad that the release date for the second book got pushed up to December, but even still, knowing that it's coming so much sooner, I don't know how I'm possibly going to wait to find out how these stories are going to continue. This book definitely ends in a cliffhanger, and at a point where I just can't get out of my head the wondering of what's going to happen. I'm also pretty excited that it seems like Dacre and Envo will play a much bigger role in book 2. So that's my review for Divine Rivals. I really enjoyed it. I really hope that you will pick it up, especially if you're someone like me who maybe isn't interested in some of the topics. It's just so well done that it kind of like transcends any kind of personal likes or dislikes. But yeah, so now today we are going to Greenport with Andrew's parents, his sister, and my dad, and I'm really excited. I've never been there before, so I'll definitely take clips along the way. And then the next time that I see you, I will probably be wrapping up Fourth Wing, which I am now about 60% of the way into, so it shouldn't take me too much longer to read. I am enjoying what I've read so far, so I'm excited to keep going, but that's all that I have for right now, so I will see you in a little bit. So the time has come for me to discuss Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I do want to apologize if this is a little bit more boring of a reading vlog. I didn't really do that much that was exciting this weekend. Actually, this weekend, I literally just cleaned my closet for the entire day on Saturday, like 12 hours, I think, of cleaning my closet. So really nothing to show there. We did go to a really good dumpling house at one point, and that was like to die for. I think I just took one quick photo of that. I didn't even do any vlog clip. That was during the week. That's pretty much it. So anyway, moving on. This is like kind of like a very exclusive reading vlog. Like it's just exclusively discussing the two books that I read that I really wanted to talk about. So without further ado, Fourth Wing. Okay, so first and foremost, before I get into all of my opinions, I will tell you up front that everyone either seems to love this book or hate this book, and I seem to feel very middling about this book. So I was very entertained while I read it. I don't think it was the best book that I've read this year, but I also don't think it was the worst book. I'm not sure if I had read it before it was so hyped, if I would have stronger feelings for it, but I don't think so, because I have very specific criticisms about it. So I will get into those, but just know that I was very entertained. I did really enjoy reading it, and I am absolutely reading the next book when it comes out. I also actually found this one like pretty challenging to rate, because there were things that I really loved about it and then things that I really didn't like about it. So I was like, I guess that means that I fall in the middle, because how do I rate something where I'm like, oh, I love love this, but then something else where I'm like, oh, I really dislike that. So again, that's why I landed kind of like in the middle. So first off, Fourth Wing takes place at a college for dragon riders, and we are following a girl named Violet. Violet was supposed to be a scribe, but after losing her brother and her father, her mother, who is in the military, forces her to join the Riders Quadrant instead of the Scribe Quadrant, which is what she had been studying to do for her whole life. So initially I did find it pretty easy to get into the story. However, I did think that the beginning was a little bit boring. And that's because at the beginning of the book, there's a lot of info dump about the world building. And while I do feel like this was necessary in order for the reader to kind of understand the world that we were getting into, I don't feel like it was done in an engaging way. And because Violet was going to be a scribe, everything is kind of relayed to us via like a textbook method. Like she would see something and be like, this is the way this is because of this reason. And you'd be like, okay, hopefully I remember that. But then later on, there were other scenes like the threshing, and the threshing is where dragons pick their rider. And during those 2 chapters, I was like on the edge of my seat, so invested, like couldn't put it down, and nothing existed around me. And then I would say that this feeling kind of went on throughout the entire book. So I would have moments of being like, this is a little boring, this could be edited down a little bit, or moments of being like, I am so excited. I definitely leaned toward the very invested side after the threshing took place. However, there were still some lulls in the story before we got to the final climax. Okay, so moving on to some other elements, I love the dragons. I have absolutely no criticisms here. I thought the relationships with the dragons were really fun. I really liked the dynamics between dragon and rider and the different ways that they communicate, and also the personalities that the dragons had. I think that they were honestly so much fun, and I never really read something like that before, so I really enjoyed that aspect of the book. And then moving on to the romance, I really liked Xaden, and while I acknowledge that there was a lot of dialogue between Xaden and Violet that was very cringy, like a lot of the time, I personally really enjoyed it. I would say that the romance was arguably my favorite aspect of the book, and that's because it reminded me of reading a young adult book from like when I was a young adult, except that there's a lot more payoff in this one. This is actually considered to be a new adult book, and the author is a romance writer, and this is her first fantasy book, so it's no surprise that the romance really worked for me. I think it was extremely angsty, very over the top, and to me personally, it was just wildly entertaining. It's definitely not the kind of romance that's going to be perfect for everyone, but for me, I had so much fun reading it. Xaden kind of has that like alpha male vibe going on, and he's like the dark, brooding, angsty kind of love interest, but I appreciate that he gives Violet the space to be who she is and the tools to hone her skills as she's, you know, getting acclimated to this college and her new life. I also really loved Violet as a character. Violet suffers from chronic pain, so she has a whole extra layer of challenges when she gets to this school. And because of that, she's constantly being underestimated by her classmates, complete strangers, and even some of her closest friends. But Violet is exceedingly clever, and she has a knack for utilizing all of the resources available to her in order to make situations work to her benefit. As I mentioned, she was supposed to be a scribe, so she's extremely well versed in the rules and she knows them like the back of her hand. She's able to find loopholes within them that other writers wouldn't necessarily see. I also really love the friendships that she makes in the book, specifically with Liam and Rhiannon. And I also just want to say that I hated Dane with like the fire of 1,000 suns from the first time that we got to meet him. I was like, oh no, this guy is not it. And then here is where I'm going to start talking about some spoilers for the end of the book when it comes to Fourth Wing. So if you have not yet read the book, I would suggest turning the video off now until you have read it, and then you're welcome to come back later if you want to hear some of my spoilery thoughts. And if you're going to leave any comments with spoilers, just please make sure that they are kind of like marked, or they're, you know, lower down in the comments so that no one inadvertently stumbles upon them. So the ending. I I totally understand why everyone was like freaking out at the end and is so excited for the next book. However, I don't think that it was as exciting as other people made it out to be. I felt like there were enough breadcrumbs that were laid throughout the book that the ending just like didn't really come as a huge surprise to me. I totally expected wyverns to be real. I also called like very early on that Xaden, the son of a trader who is seemingly doing very well in his new environment, is likely some kind of rebel and is still technically the good guy because their government is on the more corrupt side. I don't know, I could just see that coming from like a mile away. I was just waiting for the twist when we would find out like Xaden is actually involved in some kind of rebellion. I also had a very funny feeling that either Violet's brother or her father would be involved in the rebellion, and yep, that happened too. So that's not to say I didn't enjoy the story, and I do think that it is nice when an author does lay some of those clues so a reader is able to figure something out. It's always really exciting when something unexpected happens, but if it doesn't make sense, then it's not good writing. So I don't criticize it for that, but I just felt like it was a little bit predictable. And again, it could be because I have read so many YA dystopian books that are in this vein. Okay, and then I was devastated about Liam. Like, I cannot even tell you. Liam became one of my favorite characters in the book, and when we lost him, I was like, I could see it coming, but I was like, no, she's not gonna do that to me. And then she did. I was so sad. I'm really devastated. That was probably the thing that hit me the hardest in the book. I really did not want that to happen, and it did. Surprisingly, I did not cry, and I usually cry in like everything that I read. So that was actually kind of strange, but I did feel that one really hard. So before I started reading this, on one of my past videos, one of you lovely viewers commented that a lot of people tend to like this one because of the nostalgic feelings that it invokes for YA of years past, and I have to completely agree. I think that is why I enjoyed it so much. It really just was very fun, very entertaining. I wish it was a little bit more quick-paced or edited down a little bit, because I tend to like slow books because I do like character moments, but I felt like, again, like the info dump in this one was just like a lot. But it really was like a more adult version of a book that I would have like lost it over in my early teens or early 20s. So again, I found this one pretty difficult to rate because there were a lot of things that I loved about it, and then there were things that I didn't like about it. And despite that, I was very entertained, but there were moments where I wasn't as entertained as I thought that I would be. So I ended up landing on 3.5 stars. And again, I am really excited to continue reading. I'm hopeful that in the next book, Rebecca Yarros will kind of hone her fantasy writing skills a little bit more, and since we are already familiar with the world now, I'm hoping that we won't have as much of that info dumpness. But honestly, I'm just really glad that I finally read this one and I can finally contribute to the conversation and know what everyone is talking about when I just keep hearing fourth wing, fourth wing, fourth wing. So yeah, really glad that I read it, really excited to continue, but not a 5-star read for me. So that is gonna be it for this vlog. Those are the 2 books that I had wanted to talk to you guys about, and I'm really glad that I ended up enjoying both of them. I think both were like very hyped, anticipated releases for me this year, and I think that they both delivered. Of the 2, I obviously really enjoyed Divine Rivals more than Fourth Wing, but that's not to say I didn't enjoy Fourth Wing too. So I had a really good time in this vlog. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I hope that you will pick up Divine Rivals to read if you have not yet already. And if you enjoyed Fourth Wing, please leave me comments, or if you hated it, I would love to talk about that too. Again, I feel like it's like so polarizing and it's weird to feel like I'm in the middle. So yeah, that's all that I have for this video, and I will see you guys soon in a new one. Bye!